What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Lore Reloaded. I am the wondrous lore master. With that in the background, as you can hear, James, it is always a pleasure to see all of you lovely people. Of course, I have Anti-Trekker with me. Anti-Trekker, how you doing, good sir?
Hanging in there, not too bad. And, well, not too good. Just watched Star Trek, but, there's that. Um, yeah.
You
By the way, to the people on my side, if you're watching on my stream, I'm going to do the super chat rewards and stuff after me and Lore Reloaded are done talking about it, so that we're not like messing up his stream while we're trying to do this stuff.
Right, and that's what I was going to say. Ultimately, if you get any huge ones and you need to do it, that's not a big deal. But
Right.
yeah, so we're going to be talking about today all of the fun stuff. Star Trek Calypso, just like the best Star Trek short trek, I think, to date, if you ask me.
Well, if you're considering that Calypso is one of two short treks and the other one was the train wreck that was Tilly in space, yeah, I guess you could say that. I mean, it was less. Well, it was just less.
That's exactly what I'm saying. All right, so I mean, let's get into it. So I do actually, and you and me may disagree with this more, but I do think it was probably the stronger of the two, story wise and technicality or technical detail wise, but less when it comes from it being actual Trek. The other one was obviously more Trek, in my opinion. I'd be curious about your opinion on that, though.
I don't think that either one of them are particularly. I mean, neither of them are consistent with Trek. The the problem with this one is different than the problems with Runaway, but it's still extremely problematic for me. I mean, they doubled down on the technology level of the Discovery itself. We now see that the Discovery has more advanced computer systems than anything that has ever been on Star Trek, ever. And not only that, but like, keep in mind that this is some 14, well, this takes place later because the Discovery's just been aimlessly drifting in space for 1,000 years. And apparently abandoned for some reason that's never explained, which is more interesting to me than what's going on in the story, is what happened to the crew of Discovery.
Right. Spoilers, by the way. We probably don't even need to say that, but yeah. I don't mean to interrupt you. Spoilers, if you guys are watching this.
So Discovery has been abandoned for some 1,000 years, and nobody's on it. And this guy gets rescued by the ship's computer that is more advanced than the M5 that comes 14 years after Discovery, more advanced than the computer systems that we see in Next Gen, in Voyager. This is a truly living computer that has full control, not just of the computer systems, but every physical system on the ship.
So let me ask you this. Let's and I want to back up for just a second, because have you watched the latest Orville, out of curiosity? The latest season?
No, has it started yet? I didn't even know.
I don't know if it has or not. That's why I'm asking. The reason I ask is because starting out, when we first see it, they start playing like Betty Boop, right? Mm-hmm. And so the first thing I see with that, it reminds me of two things. First off, it reminds me kind of like an Orville, where they'll watch all of this. What's the word I'm looking for? Copyright free or stuff that they don't have to pay for, or that they'll license on a lot of this old stuff like ancient television. Mm-hmm. And then it almost had a Fallout feel to me. And my problem here is it seems like they're trying to compete with other things, or at least are writing this in a way that it doesn't have a Trek feel. It didn't start out feeling like Trek. Again, it reminded me of Orville or the new Fallout series. I want to know your opinion or thoughts on that, because it was...
I don't know where you got the Orville vibe from it at all, because aside from the fact that he's watching old TV shows and they did that on Orville, but that's to me, that doesn't make it feel like Orville. That just means that he's stuck watching Betty Boop for months at a time while he's in this escape pod.
843 times, to be exact.
Yeah, yeah.
That would drive him insane. I don't know how he still had a mind after that.
Well, yeah, but the problem though is that you have and Darren in my chat was saying Betty Boop is public domain. That's why they used it.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. I'm horrible.
Yeah.
That's why I do. That's why I always do voiceovers, because I'm horrible on the fly. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what Orville does. They use that type of material and watch it to try to connect back in some way. And again, and it had a dystopian feel, which Discovery has a dystopian feel, I get. But I don't know, it didn't feel like Trek to me starting out. Did it to you at all? Did you at any point get a Trek feeling beyond what the images that we saw?
No, and that's what I'm saying. Because, like I said, the computer was like a nicer female version of the HAL 9000. And in fact, they clearly were directly borrowing from imagery from the HAL 9000 with her circular eye that's all over the ship and the way that she was looking at people. And but the fact that this computer system is so freaking advanced, it makes no sense that Discovery, because I know she says, well, I've been spending most of the last 1,000 years evolving. I'm sorry, but if you let my computer sit for 1,000 years, it's not going to become sentient and be able to move things around the house.
So this is something you've talked about before, and I want to push you on a little bit. So, and as you said, to get everyone up to date, basically he arrives on the Discovery, or we assume it's the it's the Discovery.
It's the Discovery.
It says it. It says it. Yeah. And so you have Siri. It reminded me of Siri. It looked exactly like Siri. Or HAL 9000, I can see that. And she says that she's been by herself for 1,000 years and she evolved to this point. And so what I want to push back, well, I don't know, push back, but we had this discussion when we were doing the After Treks on Discovery originally, where we were talking about, could the computers be as advanced as Discovery had? It's just due to it being in the 1960s, they couldn't go that far, right? So could M5 be that advanced? Now, my problem with that, and I'll admit beforehand, is she was leagues above M5 before M5 was even conceived. Right. But still, could they create a computer that could do that even in that early of stage? It's just they never could explore those due to issues because it's in the 1960s. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Well, they explored it with the M5. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, sure, the M5 didn't do the craziness that she did, but the idea of a super advanced computer that can think, that has feelings, that can feel remorse and that kind of thing, that's all in the Ultimate Computer. The problem is that the Ultimate Computer was built over a decade later, and it was considered a revolutionary new type of computers.
Right.
And so this makes no sense. There's no. This not only now do we have hollow emitters everywhere, including the entire bridge is now a holodeck. We find out. I mean, it is literally a holodeck, the bridge of the ship. So you can make the environment of the bridge look like anything you want, including an old-timey movie.
Yeah, I love how it becomes. I get where you're seeing holodeck. I don't think holodeck necessarily, but yeah, they make it a movie theater.
Well, remember, he walks into the hologram and then starts dancing with the computer-generated version of herself.
Yeah, but he memorized. You see him memorizing all. We're jumping ahead a little bit. Let me ask you this: what do you like about I think the visuals are stunning. Again, we talked about this offline beforehand. This is basically a cliche story about this veteran who meets a woman. He has a family. They fall in love. Ultimately, they get to the point where they're about to become more than a relationship, and he returns. It's a flipping of the script. It's a revamping of a cliched story. I don't hate it, right? It doesn't add anything to Trek. I will agree. There's nothing here to Trek, but I think the visuals and story overall are all right.
I think you're half right. I think that the visuals were pretty good. Thomas thought that there was going to be a Halloween episode. Yeah, I'll tell you, the first couple of minutes I thought we were going to see kind of a haunted house story. The way they kind of set up at the beginning, it feels like, okay, it's kind of eerie. The ship is abandoned. It's going to be a mystery to find out what happened to the crew, and there's something dangerous on the ship. But no, he's just falls in
Well,
love with a computer
and
and then
that's the way
leaves.
the trailers were too. So they make it look like that. They make it look like it's a horror. And I did expect her to at one point be like, "Hello, Dave." You know, one of the
Right.
have that point where she won't let go or whatever. But you're right; it was completely misleading.
Well,
Of course,
and that
Discovery
could have
being
been
misleading.
right, and
Yeah.
that could have been interesting, at least, even though it still would be completely inconsistent with everything else Trek. It would at least be interesting if once he decided he needs to go back to his family, if she's like, "No, you can't leave," and then starts basically having the ship try to stop him from getting to the shuttle. That would actually be interesting, where now he's fighting against the ship that he's on.
Right.
And but they didn't do anything like that, and I'm sorry, you say, oh, the story was better. There was no story. This was not a story. This was a guy crashes, he gets better, and he watches some old movies with a computer, and then he leaves. That's the entire story.
I disagree. I think there's a protagonist, there's a conflict, and there's a resolution. I think you have the hero's journey in it. But I mean, it's just a revamping of an old cliche story. It's not the best. It's 15 minutes. This honestly reminds me. This looks like, how CBS has these rules about the 15 minutes and whatnot, right? I could see this being like a fan fiction of that.
I don't even see that because there's no point to it. That's the thing. There is absolutely no point to this story at all. There's no reason. I mean, nothing that's interesting about it is explained at all. We don't know why Voyager. We don't know why Discovery was abandoned. We don't know what the war was about that this guy was fighting in. We don't know jack about anything that's going on outside of he's on the ship, he watches some old-timey movies, and he leaves. All the things that they set up that have some potential interesting things to them are just left. And so the writers of this, and by the way, T in a super chat was saying that the problem with doing a prequel, especially written by people who don't know the universe, is that they're writing in. But the problem is, it's not even that. This doesn't even fit in the, regardless of how weird some of the stuff in Discovery is. This doesn't fit in Trek anywhere. This is a completely. It was written by a 10-year-old. There is no deep story. There's no theme. There's just a guy who gets better, who watches a movie, and who leaves. And for some reason, he's on, a Crossfield class starship that's full of every amenity that a Crossfield class starship has. And he decides to sleep in a hammock in the transporter pad. What is the point in that? I mean, why doesn't he just go to one of the 150 empty staterooms and sleep in a freaking bed? Why is he stringing up a hammock in the transporter room on top of the transporter pads? How does that make any logical sense whatsoever?
Right. Well, the some would say that you aren't a romantic anti-Trek.
So I said I thought a romantic because I didn't like a story about a guy wanting to bone a computer.
Yeah, yeah. So you brought up a good point that kind of annoys me. You're right. They have all the amenities. I'm wondering if they're going to try to put somehow make it make sense in Discovery to do a tie-in in some way. Maybe it's alternate universe. Maybe it's.
I hope not.
I mean, that would be the only way I could see it. But I agree. It seems to have all the amenities. Also, the way they utilize synthesizers to basically be replicators was frustrating to me, I think. Because this computer has been left alone for 1,000 years, right? So the only thing that the Discovery would have, according to the Discovery's timeline, is a synthesizer. And it effectively is working like a replicator. Even if it's not a replicator, and we assume that it's still synthesizing things, it's not magic. And you can correct me on this, but it was always my understanding that synthesizers required some kind of material component. And material components, especially carbon and stuff, while steel might not go bad, carbon and stuff definitely would, right? So I can't see the synthesizers still being able to do what they do. Make food too. That seems immensely. Again, replicators, you could make an argument. I know you disagree with this, but I think you could make an argument that they're turning energy into matter. But synthesizers definitely didn't work like that.
Why do you think I would disagree with you about how replicators
I
work?
thought you've talked about that. I thought you said you disagree that replicators don't turn energy into matter. But I mean,
No, that's what they do.
Okay, cool. I thought you disagreed with that. But regardless, synthesizers don't, to my understanding. Unless I'm somehow wrong about that. They've never worked, at least not in TOS.
Well, no, but here's the thing, and that's in the original series, they didn't have devices that could just manufacture anything at any time like they do in Next Gen. They didn't have true replicator technology. They could only, basically like and one thing that people miss in the original series, there's actually been a couple of references to it, is that the Enterprise has a galley with a chef. And the funny thing is the chef is even mentioned in this short trek, but they don't just like magically make food. When you go to one of the food dispensers on the TOS Enterprise, it's basically just moving the food from the galley to wherever your location is. It's not making the food. However, you see in in Discovery season 1, we and everything else, and in this one as well, that they can just make whatever they want. I mean, she makes him like 5 different outfits in this just out of the blue, because they have replicators. They're just not quite as fast apparently as the replicators on Next Gen. I mean, they can call it whatever they want. It's a freaking replicator.
Right.
If you can make the guy food, if you can make him clothing, and you don't have any specific raw material that you're manufacturing with, then it's a replicator. She
right.
When we and the funny thing is, like, the computer actually talks about how she's sorry that the food is synthesized, so it doesn't have the taste of real food because the chef wasn't around. But the thing is that they even touch on that in Next Gen. Like, for example, when they compare the taste of real food to replicated food, and people made comments that real food tastes better.
Right. And they make the reference in Deep Space Nine, too. I was actually going to point that out, that one of the Eddington, the character, talks about how it only tastes like protein. It doesn't taste good at all. And just to note, like Oratakwa Tinga says, synthesizers or resequencers require a raw protein to synthesize food or items. And I don't know if they're called synthesizers or resequencers or what. She calls it synthesized, so that's why I went with synthesizer.
Right.
But again, every time we talk about this, it's symptomatic of what has been going on with Trek. Like I said, this isn't a bad story from I think it's not a bad,
horrible story.
I disagree. I don't think it's a bad story from a science fiction standpoint. It adds nothing to the Star Trek mythos, and it breaks more than it adds. It's not even neutral, because it creates problems that it creates problems within continuity that wasn't seen before, right? A computer that's more advanced than M5, synthesizers and resequencers that work like replicators. And again, I don't know if you've seen my video or whatever, but this is just further proof that this is just reimagined, that this is Discovery era. And that's what just people need to know going in, because they're liars.
Well, Hugo Stevens is up, unfortunately, because he can't sleep. He said he's mad at me for changing my facial hair. First of all, I shaved it all off on Halloween Day because I'm not shaving it all for November. And on December 1st, I'm going to trim it back to my usual look because, yeah. But now I have like a Matt Decker look going on. Anyway, and so he couldn't sleep, so he's watching us now, and he wanted me to say hi to you. So you can say that's Hugo.
What up, Hugo?
So, I'm hung up on the fact that you think that this was a good story. I I don't.
it's not a
You're
bad
blowing
story.
me away with that.
It's not a bad story from a science fiction standpoint. You have a veteran. So for those who haven't watched, again, spoilers. You have a veteran who escapes from a ship. We don't know what's going on. We don't know why he's there, and he lands on a ship, or a ship saves him. He meets this advanced AI, this computer. And throughout time, over time, he begins to bond with this inanimate machine. We see, and again, one of the things I wrote down was when they were showing the sequencing of time and showing him walking around the galley like he was, because you saw the multiple instances to portray time, them playing chess and things. He first treats it like an animate object and starts to become more and more friendly with it. They start to bond, right? And ultimately, it ends up with them watching a movie, a romantic movie, and this computer has taken care of him for so long, mended him back to health. And so he wants to do something for her. He memorizes, she likes this movie for whatever reason. He memorizes all of the movements and replicates them actually dancing. Now, we can get into that because I kind of wanted to get everything beforehand. And guys, we're not really skipping ahead. There wasn't a lot to the story. There's not like these big plot
There's no
points.
story.
But so he memorized this and begins dancing with her. It wasn't a holo program. It wasn't. It may have been a holo program, but it wasn't. I don't think it was a holo program. It was a projection, right? So he couldn't feel her. She couldn't feel him. He's just dancing with air effectively, but he's doing it for the computer. And the computer falls for him. He finds out that he's falling in love. She gives up and gives him a shuttle so that he can make it back to his actual family or see what happens, and he leaves. It again, the protagonist is the war veteran. The conflict is the fact that he falls in love with this computer. The computer falls in love with him. He decides to leave instead of stay with her, so it's a bittersweet ending, but she gives him what he needs. So there's a story there, especially if you're into romantic intentions. I don't know who this was like created for. I guess maybe they have a larger female base than what we believe they have. But that would be the only reason to write this story, in my opinion.
Well, here's the thing. You have the outline of a story. You don't have an actual story. You don't have, I mean, basically what you described as the plot points of the episode, but there's no cohesive, natural flowing story to it. It's just like, okay, we see him wake up. The computer tells him that she healed him. And then, we get a montage of him basically hanging out in the mess hall over and over and over and over and over, and her making him tacos and crap like that because she can control every system on the ship. And then
How'd you like Taco Tuesday? It's so cringe. I mean, that's another thing. Enterprise was able to kind of link it back because it's closer to our generation, but it's so cringe. That is so obviously like this day and age. Like everybody gets Taco Tuesday, but give it about 10 years and nobody's going to get that reference. Pop culture. It's so, and Trek has never really been about pop culture.
Right. Well, I still like I said, you have. And it's not, by the way, for people that think I just don't like romances. I like a good romantic story. Like I like The Notebook. Notebook is a good romantic movie to me. But that's not the point here. I don't think you have enough meat. And that's a problem with these short treks, is that if you're going to do a 15-minute format type of show, then you really need to know within the first minute what's going on, right? And that's true of any, like if you're a filmmaker, if you don't know if you're doing a 15-minute movie, if you don't know in the first minute what the goal of the protagonist is, you're done. And they spend the first several minutes of this short trek with him just, creepily looking around sickbay and stuff, and the computer throwing things at him, and in a very creepy way, and which doesn't make any sense because it seems like, okay, they're setting it up to be some kind of haunted house story, and then it totally jumps the rails and becomes this computer that is sentient. That I mean, right off the bat, she's giggling. She's, oh, you think I'm alive? And it was just pointless.
That would have been good horror if they had went that route, right?
Oh yeah, this
when he
could
was
have
like,
been a great thriller, horror, suspense type of story.
I still don't think it would have been Shrek, but it would have been good horror.
Right.
Especially if she kept on with that. Oh, you still think I'm alive, and then things are not necessarily. Especially if it kept with the ominous music and everything. But again, we were having some conversations about the ship itself. First off, you're telling me Starfleet. This is supposed to be one of the most advanced ships. It has the ability to use a spore drive. It has all of this going on. And Starfleet doesn't come back in 1,000 years looking for their ship.
No, apparently not. And like I said, the most interesting thing about the whole thing is the idea that I keep saying Voyager for some reason, the Discovery was abandoned. That was the most interesting thing about this story, and they never. I mean, it's not like the computer. It's not like the computer doesn't know what happened. She just never mentions it. Right. She just says they're gone. So Hugo is taken off now. It says, good to see you all. Good night, Anti-Trekker lore, and everyone. Have a great night, Hugo. Thank you so much for the super chat. I do truly appreciate it. And you have a wonderful, I guess, morning and for you. And get some rest if you can, man.
So here's a possible plot hole I just realized.
A possible plot hole. I'm shocked.
She says she was ordered not to go anywhere.
Right.
She also said that that it took her 1,000 years to evolve where she was at, right? Mm-hmm. So the level, maybe when we see it in Discovery, the computer has the ability to reason that she can't move or whatnot or leave. But she's not at the point of being an actual human. And this is something that I figured you'd get all kinds of bent out of shape, because you get bent out of shape when it comes to Star Wars about this. This shows that computers, any computer in Star Trek, can become sentient, given enough time. Which means all computers at this point now have the ability to be sentient, which has implications for Data, which has implications for the Doctor. Basically, all computers, including every ship we see, has the ability to become a living being. And so Starfleet is effectively using slaves at that point.
Except that now, where we disagree is that I don't believe that they're truly sentient. But and I certainly don't believe that any computer system is going to achieve sentience just by being left on for a long period of time.
We're going with what the story tells us, right? Not with how you think things work. We're going with what the story tells us, right? Are you telling me you don't think that this computer you don't think the intent of what this computer was to be sentient?
I'm sure that's what the writers were thinking.
She feels emotion. We know that. She reaches every point. She would pass the test. Data pass. Now I know you disagree with that, but you disagree with how the test came out, how the court case came out. But still, if they called Data to be alive, she would pass every one of those that Data passed.
I'm not saying that's not what the writers intended. I'm saying that it's faulty logic. And the simple fact is that leaving a machine on for an extended period of time doesn't make the machine more advanced.
Right.
And no, it's not like if you have because from what we've seen of the computer in Discovery Season 1, it had voice commands. It had basic protocols. You could talk to it, but there was nothing in there that would make you think that the computer could just reprogram itself as it felt like doing. And in fact, that's even like if you fast forward to Voyager era, where you have the Doctor, who is the most advanced computer program that we've seen on Trek, and while you could argue whether or not he's sentient, he could not violate his programming. And he couldn't just rewrite his programming. So that's, but somehow she's apparently improved upon herself, gaining knowledge that she had no way of gaining, and masters the ability to magically manipulate things.
Well, and it was brought up in my chat, and again, I apologize, guys. In chat, usually, and as Anti-Tracker said, usually we're a lot more interactive, but this is more just breaking down Calypso. But it was brought up in my chat, unless the computer was told to self-improve on itself, generally computers don't evolve. Like, and I guess maybe this is another misunderstanding of how evolution works. Usually computers don't evolve to better themselves unless there's a program that has them build upon that. So are all computers programmed to improve themselves? You know?
Well, apparently.
I don't know, man. Again, it's not the worst story I've ever seen. I think it is a story, and we can disagree on that. But it's not. There's nothing that ties it into Trek. He never questions what all. He doesn't seem to recognize Starfleet. That kind of is interesting to me. Starfleet in the 24th century, at least into the 25th century, is the biggest dog on the block, right? So you're telling me in 700 years, if it's 1,000 years there, that'd make it 500 to 700 years. Starfleet's gone. You don't even recognize the symbology. I guess that would make sense, but that is a massive. Like we have relics from 500 years ago on this planet, right? We know about civilizations that existed. So you're telling me he doesn't recognize this behemoth? He doesn't recognize a Starfleet insignia. He doesn't recognize the technology. I mean, the pod that he was in even looked like it used similar technology to what the Discovery had.
Right. He didn't seem, and that's the thing. Like, if Discovery is 1,000-year-old ship at the point that he is rescued, why isn't he sitting there looking at how and commenting about how antiquated it looks?
Mm-hmm.
You know, shouldn't he be saying, "Well, where's the neural interface or whatever?" And where's the, I don't know, whatever quantum device that they use in 1,000 years after the events of Discovery? That made no sense. And his life pod, yeah, it looked relatively average. I mean, it wasn't a bad looking ship, but it just looked like another ship. It didn't look like, ooh, this is from the distant future.
Right. That's a great point. You're right. Because everything about that would be antiquated in 700 years. Even unless his planet was backwater. But again, this is what I just hate. It's like, this is exactly what they do. They write a story that they think would be cool, that they think would be interesting, and they don't go back and consider the implications of what they're doing. Right. If they had given us some reason why it was gone, or why, like, even a 20-second thing, if he said what happened to the crew, and she just plays a 20-second clip of them, some emergency that was happening, and the captain giving the order, at least we'd have a little bit more knowledge of it. Or if he asks, what ship is this? This is the Starfleet this is the Federation ship, Discovery. And then he asks, what the hell is the Federation? Then at least we're given more information. We know that either it's in a sector the Federation hasn't reached, or the Federation is gone.
Right.
I don't think he ever asked that, does he? What ship is this, or who do you belong to? I don't remember that.
No, he doesn't say anything like that. He's just like, okay, I'm on a ship.
Yeah. And you're not curious what ship this is, because this is a nice ship, right?
Well, nice by whose standards, though?
Well, relatively, yeah.
Apparently, 1,000 years in the future, hammocks are preferable to beds.
That is true. I don't know why he chose the hammock when he had quarters he could sleep in.
Right. It didn't make, and nothing about the episode made sense. In fact, to give you an idea how stupid the episode was, as far as just the writing and all that, is at one point in the episode, he's sitting there looking out the window at space. And as he's looking out the window, of course, because it's a trope, you have to see a shooting star go by. Now, on the surface, you're like, oh, neat, until you stop to think about the fact that they're in freaking space. And the reason you can see a shooting star is because the material is burning up as it passes through the atmosphere of the planet.
But maybe
And
whatever thing they're in, the nebula or.
but the window he's looking out, it was clear. It was just black space and stars in the background, and there was a shooting star going by. No, it was not a comet, Lobster. It was a shooting star. You would. Yeah,
No, here's what happened. The computer specifically used the deflector shield that it has to send out a pulse to burn it up so that he would see and that he would enjoy it.
I don't know.
It's the most stupid thing I've ever said.
Well, no, the most stupid thing you said was that the story was...
the story. I thought you were about to bring up the transwarp thing. That'd be the second most stupid.
Yeah, transwarp is the second most stupid thing.
Again, if you guys are watching this and you haven't seen the short trek, it's a story. You can agree or disagree that it's good, but from a Star Trek standpoint, it adds nothing. You gain nothing from it. And again, because they're more worried about trying to write whatever the hell it is they're trying to write, they don't put continuity into it, and it begs more questions than it answers. It's not even a neutral story. The only way that I can see them maybe they're going to pull this into the actual season, and that might be interesting because this could be like an alternate universe type thing, or maybe the mirror universe. I can't see that, but maybe. But that would be about it, because I don't know why they'd leave. I don't know why they create this story not to address it in the season at some point.
Well, the same reason as the Tilly. The only reason for the existence of these short treks is clear. And the reason they're spreading them out one per month is clear. They're trying to drum up more subscriptions for CBS All Access. That's it. They otherwise they would just put them all out in 1 week and let people enjoy them. But they're spreading, or at least put them all out week, a 4-week cycle. But no, they're spreading it out monthly so that you can't just use the free trial. You have to subscribe for 4 months to see these.
That's a good point. I never thought of that.
And so that's the only reason they're doing this. And the problem is that, yeah, the Tilly story means nothing. This story means nothing. I guarantee you that the Saru story that's coming up next month is going to mean nothing. It's just they're just cheap, sloppily put together tack-ons in order to get people to pay for their CBS Online for that month.
Vile Mike is telling you to stop knocking hammocks. They're extremely comfy. Though I'll be honest with you, the hammock thing I don't hate. It's just supposed to make him quirky or whatever. But I mean, I assume he'd know what a transporter pad is. Screw that. Putting a hammock on a transporter pad with a computer that is running everything. I mean, even though technically she can transport you anywhere you are on the ship, it still would make me feel better not to be on the transporter pad. I'd make her work for her money if she's going to kill me. But still, you know what I'm saying? I get that you can, no matter where you are, you're screwed. But still, on the transporter pad of all places.
Right.
But I guess they want to use that set to justify building it. Well, how would you fix this then? How would you make this? Would you just turn it into a horror and then add more elements that explain where they came from?
I would absolutely. I would have him. I wouldn't. First of all, I wouldn't set it on the Discovery. I would just say, because they can use the same sets. It's just you just put on a different starship. And you can use one of the CG models that you had of, the Walker class or something like that. And you have some guy and in fact, if you want to tie it into the story of Discovery thus far, you have it someone who escaped in an escape pod from the Battle of the Binary Stars, and he's been drifting for the better part of a year, ever since the Battle of the Binary Stars, and then he's picked up by a starship, but something has happened in the starship where something or someone is controlling the ship and basically trying to kill him.
Here's an interesting one. I like that, but here's a shift on it. So he's at the Battle of the Binary Stars, as you said, and then he escapes, goes in the time capsule or whatever. It turns into a time capsule, and then he is picked up by the sister ship of Discovery, and so you have him versus the tardigrade.
Well, the
And
problem there is that CBS
the
is going to,
lawsuit. No,
yeah, I don't think CBS is going to use the tardigrade.
but let's just assume for some the tardigrade or something tardigrade light. That would be an interesting tie-in. It would be a horror. It makes complete sense being relative. It at least makes more sense than what we're seeing here, right? Yeah. And at least he's on the tardigrade. At least he's on the ship, and they can reuse the set, and it makes sense. I mean, the Crossfield at that time is supposed to be one of the most advanced ships. It's supposed to be top of the line, right? And so you're telling me that Starfleet leaves this ship for 1,000 years, that the crew evacuates and they don't find it. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like ships can just go missing like that, especially if the crew survives and escapes.
Nothing about it makes sense. And why is it that, like I said, the one interesting question that comes out of this whole thing they never touch, which is why is the ship abandoned for 1,000 years? That makes no sense whatsoever, especially since the computer was ordered to maintain position, they were expecting to come back.
Right.
So what happened?
Well, and a computer at that advanced level, I don't know. Are they 3 rules safe or whatever the hell that saying is? She's ordered not to go anywhere, but she can reason why Michael Burnham shouldn't die. Because right. I'm pretty sure that don't let a criminal out, a mutineer out, is probably on par with don't move.
Well, there's, the way they write Discovery is crap anyway. But I mean that whole sequence pissed me off in Battle of the Binary Stars, because there's no way that a computer that's pre-TOS would be able to have an argument about anything.
But if it can, why can't you argue it out of there's no reason to stay here? Even if he can't go to wherever the hell it is. I wrote down the planet that the dude was from. But wherever a planet is, Sigma 7 or whatever the hell it is, it's not that. But wherever it was, even if he couldn't argue to that, couldn't he say, obviously, they're all dead. There's no species that does that. Why don't you go to the nearest, wherever the hell, whatever government you do base? Why don't you take us near that? And if that takes me near Arcturus 7 or wherever the hell it is, I'll jump out in a shuttle.
Yeah. And T. Stoney points out, he says, computed, dear. Because I don't know if you remember, but in the original series, the Enterprise computer was briefly given a personality because
it was female too.
Because the people that repaired the ship wanted to give it a personality, and since it was a planet entirely dominated by women, they gave it a female personality. But the thing is, it was still a pre-programmed personality. It wasn't a thinking machine.
Right.
There's really, basically the M5 was the first actual thinking computer.
Right.
Right. And of course, it was a miserable failure. And then many, many years later, you have Data with his positronic brain.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's just stupid.
Interestingly, there are points in TNG where the computer shows some level of intelligence, not on this level, nor what we see in TOS, but it actually interacts in a personal way, interestingly enough. But it's never like a plot point. It's just how they have the computer respond.
Right.
And it's so ignorable. It's like any other continuity issue. But yeah, I don't know. Overall, again, I know you didn't like the story. I would say visuals are really good. Discovery always does well with that. I completely think that the visuals are on par. Though things almost seem a little too clean, I would say. You know what I'm saying? There's something about the grittiness of space.
There was dust.
Okay.
He wiped the dust off the captain's chair.
Well, then there you go. That fixes everything. I
Yeah.
stand corrected on that.
And I want to say, because this is something Thomas actually put in the super chat. Now, it's just a joke, but he made me think of something that actually does apply here. He says, hopefully Burnham sent the crew to a planet as she fought the Doomsday Machine, and the planet was destroyed, and she went crazy and put herself into the computer, so that it was actually Michael Burnham's brain in the computer. However, this is what I'm going to say to that, Thomas, is that you may remember that when I reviewed Runaway, I gave that episode a +1 bonus for being the first episode that did not have Michael Burnham featured in the episode. They did show pictures of her, but she wasn't in the episode. And the final score for Runaway ended up being 1 out of 10, only because it got a +1 bonus. So on this one, I am going to give it a +2 bonus because not only was Michael Burnham not in it, but there was no pictures, no reference. This was the first Star Trek Discovery that did not reference Michael Burnham in any way, shape, or form.
And she's dead.
Right. So, and well, we assume. We don't know if she's evolved into something that's important. So, I'm going to give it a +2 bonus for not having any reference to Michael Burnham whatsoever, which gives this one a final score of 1.5 out of 10.
I'd say I think it's a fine science fiction story. So from a science fiction,
crack, man,
it would be a 4 or a 5, an average one. I mean, I would suggest watch it if you like science fiction. From a Trek standpoint, there's nothing here. There's no reason to believe this was in the Trek universe. Literally, they could have plugged and played any universe. Mass Effect, any universe that has the ability to have like projectors and things like that. So, you know, Mass Effect, Star Trek, even Star Wars. They could have just plugged and played literally any skin on it. So it had no value from a Trek standpoint. So a 0 out of 10 from a Trek standpoint, and a 5 out of 10 as a regular science fiction, in my opinion.
I think you're just wrong.
Okay. Well,
to call this a good story is being way too kind. There's the potential for a good story in there. There's a couple of potential good angles they could have done, and they didn't.
Right. Well, I mean, I agree with that, but that's the Trek point. They could have done a lot with this from a Trek standpoint, but they chose not to. I mean, again, even if they wanted to have this entire story, just add 20 to 30 seconds or 30 to 60 seconds worth of small drop-ins. What kind of ship are you? You're a Federation starship. Either he knows what that is or he doesn't. He asks what the Federation is, and then the computer could seem confused. You don't know what the Federation is? We're in Federation territory. He's like, never heard of it. And then, you know, it at least explains a couple of things away. I mean, there are more questions. What the hell happened? But again, you know, I don't know. But I guess we'll have to leave it there.
Well, everybody on my chat thinks you're drunk because you thought the story was good.
Well, that's fine. They can. Have half of them even seen it?
A few of them have. And okay, so let me ask you guys, only those of you that have actually seen it, if you actually watched it, do you think that this has forget about the fact that it's Star Trek, does it have a passable story? I'm not saying it has to be a good story. Is it a passable story? Because in my mind, no.
Okay.
But
we can do the same on mine too. So in the chat, 1, if you've seen it, 1, if it's a passable story, 2, if it's not.
So I have one person said it was passable. And let's see.
Now I got SC, so that's automatically 1 who says
Right. Oh, yeah. For those of you in the EU, unfortunately, since Netflix refused to pay money for it, smart move, Netflix. They don't get to watch it, at least not legally.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say ever to do anything like this, but I found out that ExpressVPN is wonderful, and makes you look like you're from anywhere. Not that I would ever suggest doing that. So we got 1, 2. SC is going to automatically be a 1. We got a turnip. So, God, I love my chat.
Yeah. A Shark Trek. It's Tribble Kibble.
All right. So most people agree that it wasn't that good.
Yeah, most people are saying, yeah. I mean, T basically said it was passable, but that then he amended that, saying that is not a compliment. Um, and yeah, those of you that are outside of the United States, there's no legal way to watch it outside of the United States. The only way to watch it is through well, actually, that's not true. There's like one online service that I think is going to put it out there.
In Canada, right? Or is it
Uh,
everywhere?
I don't know, but Netflix refused to pick it up because CBS wanted money for it, and Netflix realized that no, we'd just be pissing away our money.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
interesting how they're doing so well. They're just doing awesome, and they're having all these new subscriptions, making money hand over fist, and Netflix doesn't want any of that pie. It's an interesting.
right, because yeah, CBS is talking about all these record numbers of subscribers.
Oh,
That's such a lie.
all right, man. Well, I know you got super chats and stuff to get to,
Right.
but we'll be doing this next month, probably the same day. Man, that's ingenious. I'm That's why I keep you around, because you figured that out. I never would have thought of that. They are doing it every month to require people to pay, because there'd be
Yes.
no way to get all of them. Damn, that is interesting.
Well, yeah, it's obviously. Oh, and your pal Al wants me to know if you punched the cat lately.
That's fantastic. I hope we continue talking about that like it's absolutely true, especially since at the point now people will call and say stupid stuff. So let's just keep that going. But to answer the question, yes,
You have punched the
I
cat.
have. Yeah.
Okay, well there you
I
go.
have.
You guys heard it. I hope that Captain George, you were recording that. We now have it official that Lore Reloaded punches his cat.
Yep. That's exactly what it is.
All right.
You want war? We'll do war, good sir. We can. All right, man. Well, thanks so much for coming on. I guess we'll be doing. Hopefully, we'll do more stuff than just this. But
Right.
yeah. All right. Well, I will talk to you later. Get you back to your people.
All right. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too, man. Bye.
Bye.
All right, and so that was that, good friends. Um, Overall, it was kind of like what we just talked about. Ultimately, the story, in my opinion, isn't bad science fiction. As you guys know, I'm going to film school now, and one of the things we focused on is the hero's journey and how all of those things move through. And it has a solid three-act structure, in my opinion. It has a solid hero's journey. And if you take it for Discoveryverse, if you take it for not meant to be in Trek, then you can accept things. You can accept a computer that is basically human, is advanced. You can accept not recognizing the most powerful organization or government or empire that the Alpha Quadrant has ever seen. But if you want to put continuity into it, it makes no sense. It's not a good Trek story. It's a passable anything else story, in my opinion. I mean, if you guys want to talk about it, we can definitely walk through it. A minute or two, I need to get off because speaking of film school, I got something I got to film coming up. Cherie Nagel giving $20, guys. Thank you so much. Again, as you know, super chats, just like the Patreon, just like you guys watching, is the lifeblood of this channel, and it is how I'm able to feed my kids at night. Thanks for the charity event. It was fun. It was a lot of fun. We raised over $1,600. Hope you got rest. I'm still recovering, but it was fun. Hope you got rest. If Dark Oculus has a question, answer his. I don't have any. Okay. And I didn't see anything coming from Darth Oculus. Here it is. Thanks, Sherry. Hey, Laura, joining late in the future set in stone for the USS Discovery being abandoned. Late. Is this future set in stone for the USS Discovery? I mean, from everything we've seen, it is set in stone. This did happen. It is something that is apparently canon. It doesn't make any sense. It's not consistent with anything. It asks more questions than it answers, and I kind of went over why it does. But it is supposed to be 1,000 years in the future. I kind of hope they go over it in the season 2. Interesting thing I didn't bring up, the back symbol almost kind of looked like that Romulan symbol, or not Romulan symbol, but the symbol we saw in the Discovery trailer. So I wonder if they're going to try to bring that together. Maybe it's a clue. from what planet it came from. I'm going to have to relook at that. But yes, it is. I'm sending your regards to poor Cat. Man, he is so well taken care of. That is obviously me just humor. But, so, what are you guys talking about? SC, oh, I'm sorry. At Lore Reloaded, if there's no exploration of the speckled... What? To explore new peoples, it ain't track. I don't understand what that means, Orataka. That's why I am not going to answer it. Being honest, I'm supporting Star Trek Discovery, if only to get through its muck to the other shows they are promising. I don't really have any hope for the other shows, if I'm being honest. Let me rephrase. I don't think the other shows will be any better. I do have hope. They're made from the same people who wrote Discovery, so it's basically it's honestly like hoping that things will be different, even though it's the same people doing it. It's just, I don't know. Some of my best friends are tardigrades, but I do not like CBS or Star Trek Discovery, says 1082543. Fair enough. I don't think that CBS is going to touch tardigrades, whether they have a legal right to or not. The lawsuit, they said they wouldn't, first off, and the lawsuit would probably make them just not want to have to deal with that. But yeah, so you guys have anything else, or we'll be ending it in just a moment. Anthony D, I have hope for the Picard series. I have hope for all the series. It's the same people. It's the same writers. So why would I expect anything different? And just like this show, this short track is again a symptom of an overall issue. When you looked at the trailers, what did you see? You saw a horror story. You saw a scary story. It couldn't have been anything further from the truth. SC, when are we collabing on fanfic? I don't know, SC. When are we making that happen? I think most of Trek is going to die now. Paramount is $80 billion in debt, and CBS seems now want to pursue it or not want to pursue it. Honestly, I hope they sell it to Discovery. Oh my God, from a content creator standpoint, I know you guys hate Discovery and it's going to destroy it, blah, 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 blah. I'm just saying, for me, best thing that could happen. Hey, Laura, who was on the ship? Was it a random alien? It was not. It was a war veteran. I forget his name. I think his name was like Crafty or something like that, or Foolish Face. But it was a war veteran from some war, and that's about all we know. He wasn't anyone major. The trailers lied. They never do that. Right, Vile Mike? Trailers never give you inaccurate information. But to be fair, the Discovery and CBS consistently lies. So it's just another thing on top of it. Mark Hamill said similar stuff about not being the character we knew that Patrick said. Well, that's scary. Lore, how is school going so far? Going pretty well. I got to get some stuff done tonight because my weekend is just... I got a lot of stuff going on. What's interesting, if you guys don't mind me taking a second or two, what I'm doing is, the reason why I went to film school, or going to film school, is to take this channel to the next level. Plus, you never know what's going to happen, and I want to have a backup plan in case. And so, basically, I'm going to Full Sail University, and one of the cool things is that every class, regardless of if it's like presentation or if it is literally film 101 or digital cinematography, just the base thing, it's all building a brand so that when you get out, you can present it to Marvel. And so basically what I did is I've taken this channel, and this channel is going to be my brand. And so everything I do, every time I advance, it advances this channel. And I really think you guys are going to like what you're seeing, because I'm taking all of the equipment and things and bringing it there. So, sorry, I know you guys hate it when I talk about anything that's not Trek. William Schaefer, setting it in the future would give plot device to explain why it's too... Setting it in the future would give plot device to explain why it's too futuristic compared to the original series. The problem is that it... I talked about this with Anti-Trekker. The computer is far more advanced than anything we see in any of the series. Now, the argument that has come back has been, well, they would have made them this advanced had they, had the story writing capability, had the technology, yada, yada. I see that argument. My problem is that during the original series, during the Next Generation, during Deep Space Nine, and sure as hell during Voyager, they had the abilities to show it like it's presented in this movie, like it's presented in this short track, but they didn't. And so it is a continuity issue because those were things that TNG, DS9, and Voyager could have done. And a clever writer could have written around that. They could have explained Siri. The computer was abandoned for 1,000 years, and an alien comes by, like what happened with V'ger, remember, and advanced Siri, advanced her past. And so, and then you have that explanation, right? Why was it called Calypso? It's probably in the short track. It's honestly, I don't know. It's probably in there. I don't think he calls himself Calypso. But if we look up the definition of Calypso, it's a kind of West Indian music in syncopated African rhythm, typically with words improvised on a topical theme. F if I know how that comes together. He was an African American, so I mean, I don't know. I don't know why it's called Calypso. Maybe SC knows. Is the Discord link no longer... We do have a Discord link. Actually, if you're on Patreon, there's some things changing with that. Let me give you the Discord link that I have. But there's more to it than that. And if you're on Patreon, stay tuned. Because... Stay tuned. Because there's going to be... You'll see some other stuff coming through. But here, let me share it. And then let me know in there that you're a part of the Patreon. I don't use that Patreon a lot, I gotta be honest. Not because I don't want to. I'd love to talk to everybody there. But I can't, unfortunately. Let's see. So there we go. Glad you enjoy the content. Zarkin D. Grissom, thank you so much for the support. Have you, SC, DSC is supposed to update the continuity going forward as well, says SC. So here's what I was talking, SC. I think you saw it, and I think you disagreed with it, but that's whatever. This is Discovery era. It's reimagined. It's BSG reimagined. I just don't think they did it as well as Battlestar Galactica did. So yeah, anything they update here, I'm going to point it out. If they call it Alpha Canon and it's not, I'm going to eviscerate it. Everybody, Nate Watson is here. Party can finally begin. Thank God. You know, I'm going to call it out. If it's Alpha Canon and it's inconsistent, then I'm going to rip it to shreds. That said, I'm not going to get too upset about it anymore because it's stupid. It's whatever. It's reimagined. They're redoing continuity. Just accept that. And if they say it's Prime or they're not going to be in consistent continuity or canon-wise, they're liars. Point blank. Full stop. I spend 99% of my time on Gamers Nexus Discord anyway. It's cool. I see. So you're saying that they're better. I see what it is. They're actually better. Yeah, I don't. I wish I could be more active on it. I just can't. Michael Weir says, feed the cat. I will give $10 either to feed the cat or buy the cat some lovely toy. Thanks for the support. There's a Canadian film score short film that gives an interesting view of AI. I forget the name of it, but George Lucas liked that a lot. Well, let me know. Calypso is from the Odyssey and detained Odysseus for 7 years and tried to make him become her husband and forget his wife and child back home. Well, that's interesting, but that is not what happened with her. She didn't keep him. She didn't try to make him forget. She didn't do any of that. She did fall in love with him, but when he wanted to go back to his family, she helped him. Was there any info on the future, like governments or new tech? No, there was nothing. That's the point, Darth Oculus. Nothing was gained from a Trek standpoint here. Nothing at all. At all. There was no gain added here. SC, yes, you can call out discrepancies because Trek is and has been full of it. You know, SC, here's my point with that, though. And here's what angers me, and I think you do this on purpose. There's a difference between inconsistencies in TNG, inconsistencies in DS9, inconsistencies in Voyager, we'll set aside. Inconsistencies in Enterprise. And inconsistencies in Discovery. In Discovery, they say they're not doing it, and then they do it, and they don't care. Voyager was similar, except Voyager admitted, and I forget, I don't think it was Berman, but one of the producers did say, you know what? We're trying to write a good story. Continuity be darned. At least they were honest about it, you know? Here's a solution on the continuity issues for all future Trek. Explicitly say, due to the sheer number of BS time travel incidents, continuity is no longer a valid gun. Yeah, I mean, or just say it's reimagined. Just be like, hey, this is reimagined. Anyway, guys, I think we're going to end it there. I do need to get off. I got a long night ahead of me. Thanks so much for watching. If you haven't seen it, I did some fan fiction, which I am not a huge fan of doing stuff like that necessarily. I don't know why. I'm just not used to it. Maybe I'm just uncomfortable with it. But a lot of people, especially haters, have been like, well, if you don't like Star Trek Discovery, how would you do it? How would you write Destiny? And so I went ahead and did it. So depending on if people like it or not, I may continue. Again, it depends on the amount of people who are talking, the amount of people who are views. As you guys know, I only have a limited amount of time, and I want to do content that you guys like. So take a look at it. If it's something you do like, consider it. Hey, don't forget to hit the like button. Even though we're towards the end, 63 people watching, only 25 thumbs up. What the hell is up with that? It really helps the channel. So if you like this content, then please support it by hitting that thumbs up or that thumbs down. I don't care. I get paid the same. Nate Watson, reimagining is only valid if the imagination was a product of cocaine. Well, there you go. CBS is too chicken to admit they pulled a RDM on Trek. Maybe. SC, peace out, bro. And everyone check out my Superior fanfic. Sure, check out SC's Superior fanfic. Hell, if I check it out and I like it, I will make sure everybody sees it within my sphere of influence. Oh, last thing. Stay tuned in the next week I'm going to be launching a video that talks about the Lore Reloaded cinematic universe. It's taking all of this to the next level. We're talking studio, we're talking sound booth, we're talking nostalgia critic level where you guys get to decide what the world is, what the world's like, without the unnecessary sexual attacks on women, we will say, that Channel Awesome was known for. So yeah, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. Guys, remember, in the end, all of our lives are just a story. Make yours a good one.